Why do you think Kevin McCarthy does not want a careful examination about what happened on January 6th?
Well, my humble opinion is that there's some information that he would deem troubling for the Republican Party if it got out. And I think he will do everything possible to prevent that.
Hi again, everyone. It's 5 o'clock in the East. We are expecting a full House vote coming soon on that bill to create an independent commission to investigate the events of January 6th. But as Congressman Benny Thompson remarked there, the opposition from Republican leadership against the creation of a 9/11 style commission raises some questions. Why oppose something that after months of negotiations, Democrats gave Republicans just about all of what they wanted? Why be against an investigation unless you have something to hide? Of course, McCarthy and McConnell are just following orders from the disgraced ex-president who yesterday ordered them to oppose the commission. And as compliant foot soldiers in what Liz Cheney calls Trump's crusade against democracy, they immediately fell into line. The House GOP, though, is left scrambling. Kevin McCarthy's announcement yesterday when he came out against the commission was followed by GOP leadership sending out a letter to the conference recommending a no vote as they try to guard against defections. And this morning, Senator Mitch McConnell formally voiced his opposition to the legislation.
After careful consideration, I've made the decision to oppose the House Democrats' slanted and unbalanced proposal for another commission to study the events of January the 6th. It's not at all clear what new facts or additional investigation yet another commission could actually lay on top of existing efforts by law enforcement and Congress. The facts have come out, and they'll continue to come out.
Not all of them, of course, right? It's not clear what else might come to light, though. How about this, Mr. Minority Leader, from NBC News' First Read? Quote, despite all of the previous congressional hearings, the reporting, and the impeachment proceedings regarding the January 6th attack, there's always been a crucial missing piece from that day. That missing part? An official accounting of Donald Trump's actions on January 6th, especially once he returned to the White House after addressing his rallied supporters. But as the GOP has shown us time and time again, it is merely the party of Donald Trump and the big lie. It's no wonder they don't want those questions asked and answered. Despite McCarthy's efforts, though, House Republicans are not unified in their opposition. Punchbowl News reports, quote, within hours of McCarthy coming out against the bill, dozens of rank-and-file Republicans were telling their leaders they were inclined to side with Congressman John Katko, who had helped form the bipartisan deal, and House Democrats, and against Kevin McCarthy in a stunning rebuke of the California Republicans' leadership. Punchbowl's founder, Jake Sherman, reporting earlier on the number of Republicans likely to vote for the commission, somewhere around 20 to 30, he says. The obstruction by most in the GOP of getting to the bottom of what happened on January 6th is where we start this hour with some of our favorite reporters and friends. NBC News congressional correspondent Garrett Hake is with us at the Capitol. Also joining us, Phil Rucker, Washington Post senior Washington correspondent, and Michael Steele's here, former RNC chairman. Garrett Hake, the latest from you, please, my friend.
Well, just within the last few minutes, there's been a little bit of a bombshell on Twitter in the form of a letter from a group of Capitol Police officers, not the entire Capitol Police, although they use their letterhead, just expressing their, quote, profound disappointment in the minority leaders in both houses for not backing this commission. They say essentially that how can you turn your backs on us in this way? That's not a direct quote, but the letter goes on to say that, you know, the officers need the support of members of Congress. They want this commission, and they remind members that it is the heroism of the U.S. Capitol Police Department that kept them safe, and they want this done. Now, that could put pressure on some of the Republican House members who are sitting on the fence for a vote that could start any minute now in that chamber. I've been tracking, along with Jake and the Punchbowl team's whip count. I've been trying to keep my own whip count today, and I think we're somewhere probably in the 25 to 30 Republican range who might vote in favor of this commission. The decision by Mitch McConnell to come out this morning probably slammed the door on a jailbreak that might have lost more Republicans. If you're a marginal vote on this or someone from a marginal district and don't want to worry about getting primaried, you're now looking at this and saying maybe the Senate's going to stop this anyway, so why stick my neck out on it? But you could still see, I expect to still see, fairly significant Republican defections to support this commission in the next hour.
I'm not looking at the politics. I think those are clear, Garrett Haake. But on the policy, how do they turn away from the men and women who protect their lives, not just on that day, but today and yesterday and tomorrow? There was a statement out earlier today that I read in the last hour from one of the officers who took his own life. They said, we absolutely, as a family, we deserve an independent investigation and commission. How do they look those people in the eye?
It's going to be up to them and their individual consciences to decide how they want to handle this. Although I will say, I suspect this letter from the Capitol Police might push more Republicans to vote in favor of the other major January 6th bill we'll see later this week, the supplemental, which provides boatloads of money for hardening the Capitol, for hiring more Capitol Police, for paying overtime and back pay. That may be the place where Republicans who vote against the commission go to assuage their feelings about the Capitol Police later this week.
I want to bring you in, Michael Steele, on this sort of down the bottom of Alice in Wonderland's looking glass. The Republicans, Garrett reported in this hour yesterday, Scalise was whipping votes against an independent commission negotiated by Kevin McCarthy's designee, John Katko, who actually achieved all of what Kevin McCarthy wanted. This bill that they're going to vote down, likely in the Senate, as Garrett is reporting, if that holds true, is what Kevin McCarthy told John Katko to go get, an equal number of appointees to an independent commission for Republicans and Democrats who both have to sign off on subpoenas. Again, I'm not asking about the politics of this. I'm asking about the tragedy of one of the two political parties not being interested in understanding what led to an attack on the U.S. Capitol in which the attackers chanted, "Hang Mike Pence."
Well, first off, I appreciate Garrett because he's a stronger brother than I don't know how he roams those halls and just have people whisper, you know, I don't understand why we're doing this. I don't get it. And then take the stance that they do. Here's the rub. And I think every American who's watching this narrative unfold, like so many inside my party over the last few years, we know this. This was an attack on the United States Congress. Members of Republican members of Congress, Republican members of the Senate understand this was an attack on the place where you work. And while you would love to investigate what happened when a Target was ransacked in the summer of 2020, that's not the same as attacking the United States Congress. Mayors, city council members, local law enforcement officials, they can investigate that. But if you won't investigate this, who will? A mayor from D.C. or a mayor from Chicago or a mayor from Wyoming is not going to go flying up to Washington to investigate what happened on January 6th. That's your responsibility. And the fact that you're going to play patty cake politics with the lives and the workforce that serve on that Hill is appalling. There is no excuse here. There is nothing you can say other than we vote yes to investigate, particularly when the Democrats gave you everything you wanted. Everything you wanted, Mr. McConnell and Mr. McCarthy, you got. And then because McCarthy realizes, oh, snap, my behind is about to get exposed, I'm going to have to go testify, everybody's shutting down. All I can say to the American people after watching this farce is remember the names, remember the vote.